What if darkness isn't something to escape, but something to learn from? Schopenhauer and Nietzsche didn't run from life's pain. They studied it, embraced it, and found power in it. This isn't blind pessimism. It's a radical way of seeing clearly. Their ideas might not comfort you, but they could wake you up. We start with Arthur Schopenhauer, the 19th century philosopher who dared to call life suffering, pain, and boredom. He believed the world is driven by the will, a blind, endless force that endlessly drives humans to desire and chase after fleeting pleasures. Imagine a wheel of craving that never stops. That's what Schopenhauer saw. But here's the twist. In exposing suffering, he also pointed to the path beyond it through art, compassion, and asceticism. He argued that by accepting pessimism, by seeing the world without illusions, one gains clarity. We stop fighting, we stop exhausting ourselves. We simply feel and see. That awareness becomes liberation. Contrast this with Nietzsche, the man often misread as the optimistic philosopher. He wasn't about fluffy positivity either. Nietzsche looked at the abyss and concluded that to live authentically, one must love fate in all its harshness, welcome tragedy as a teacher. He celebrated the Übermensch, someone who creates meaning despite chaos, not in denial of it. Both philosophers stared into the darker shades of life and discovered that only by embracing the void could one craft purpose. So, how did they arrive at these ideas? What can their thoughts teach us about modern living? Let's explore. Schopenhauer's core insight is that human life is fueled by an unrelenting will. That will isn't your rational self. It's primal energy, driving hunger, thirst, ambition, pride, the constant urge to reproduce, to achieve. He saw life as a suffering spiral. Desire leads to satisfaction, satisfaction leads to boredom, boredom creates new desire. The moment you get what you want something else. That momentary joy turns into a craving for the next thing. If you don't satisfy your desire, you suffer. If you do, boredom follows. This endless cycle is exhaustion. He calls it the wheel of desire. Doesn't it feel today like we're chained to a wheel of social media likes, shopping desires, and career goals? Schopenhauer said that to see this is to step off. It's not that denial or giving up brings freedom, it's clarity. We see the pattern and stop feeding the wheel. And in that, he believed something had changed. A monk who fasts or an artist lost in creation isn't following the will, they're quieting it, seeing it. And in that quietude is a kind of liberation. Liberation not from life, but from the suffering route we carve through it. Schopenhauer didn't ask us to be miserable. He offered escapes, not illusions, ways to temporarily silence the will, through art, music, compassion, nature. When you're moved by a Beethoven sonata, you're no longer seeking. You're just there, absorbed. The sense of self and its cravings dissolve. You feel what the artist felt, love what they loved. Compassion does the same. You step into another's suffering without selfish desire coloring the view. You simply bear witness. This is why he called aesthetics sublime escape, but not escapism. It's perception without craving. That state gives you a glimpse of reality without suffering, pure being. But it doesn't last. Once the music ends, you return. The point isn't to stay there forever. It's to remember you once were, now Nietzsche. He looked at suffering not to escape it, but to face it and embrace it. He said, "What does not kill me makes me stronger," but went further. Amor Fati, love your fate, even its cruelties. Nietzsche believes suffering is inevitable, but so is growth through it. He reframed the will. It isn't just craving, it's potential, energy, creative force. Every hardship challenges you. Every failure instructs you. To be free to become who you are requires courage to shape yourself in the face of chaos. That is the will to power, not a lust for domination over others, but a will to grow, to self-create, to overcome internal constraints. Unlike Schopenhauer's denial, Nietzsche encouraged affirmation. Say yes to fate, to suffering, to life, not a naive, everything is great, but a defiant, I am here, I exist, and I will create meaning. What binds these philosophers isn't pessimism as depression, it's pessimism as clarity and freedom. Schopenhauer teaches awareness of suffering and how to rise above it, not by ignoring it, but by seeing it clearly through art, compassion, and mindful living. Nietzsche says that once you see suffering as raw material, you can sculpt with it, create your destiny. Those lessons are powerful today. Consider burnout culture. We chase more success, more followers, more self-development hacks without seeing the wheel. We're unhappy yet refuse to stop. Schopenhauer would say, see it, make space, listen to music, meditate, be real. Then decide what we truly want without attaching identity to every desire. Nietzsche would ask, when you see suffering, will you run or stand? Will you say, I was given this wound, what art can I make with it? He'd push us to become, through darkness, our own best selves. Not succumbing to nihilism, but forging meaning despite it. 5. Practical takeaways for today. Let's ground this in daily life. Notice the craving loop. When you chase a new goal, pause. Ask, is this fueling genuine growth or feeding the wheel? Use breath awareness, journaling, and nature breaks to listen. Use art as medicine. Make space each day for a poem, song, painting, sunset, or dance that moves you. Be a witness, not a consumer. Practice Amor, Fati. When challenges arise, don't curse them, name them. Ask, what can this teach me? Write a sentence each day. I love my fate because build meaning from suffering. Instead of avoiding discomfort, cold showers, wholehearted conversations, creative risk, embrace mild rite of passage challenges that cultivate grit, activate compassion. Carve moments to witness others' pain, listen, help, connect. It quiets self-centered will and expands empathy. Beyond the core insights, Schopenhauer and Nietzsche both wrestle with the tension between suffering and affirmation, with control and surrender, with solitude and connection. In understanding their nuance, we begin to see life not as a battle to win, but as a dance to be danced fully, especially in its darker moments. Schopenhauer's pessimism is radical. Life is suffering. But his point isn't despair, it's clarity. Life isn't a gift. It's a challenge that each of us must perceive honestly. He maintains that this stark vision forces humility, a honing down of our ego-driven desires. In recognizing that pleasure is fleeting, that suffering is universal, we cease idolizing perpetual happiness. Instead, we honor equanimity. Nietzsche reversed Schopenhauer's despair with affirmative pessimism. Where Schopenhauer saw resignation, Nietzsche saw opportunity. Accept reality, including its brutality, and in that acceptance, you find the raw materials to build purpose. His challenge, not to hide from suffering, but to wear it like armor. When combined, their philosophies create a powerful spiritual toolkit. Understand suffering, Schopenhauer. Embrace it creatively, Nietzsche, and live with both relief and defiance. That's not optimism, it's purpose. That's not happiness, Its authenticity. Will vs. Will to power. Schopenhauer's will is a cosmic drive toward endless wanting, and therefore endless torment. Nietzsche's will to power is not tempered by resignation, but fueled by transformation. The irony. Both begin with the same force. Schopenhauer reveals its danger. Nietzsche harnesses it. You can interpret these differences as two stages. Awareness, Schopenhauer. Name the prison. See your chains, creation, Nietzsche. Use those chains as the building blocks of yourself. This dynamic mirrors spiritual traditions. First becomes destruction, night, then creation, rebirth. Asceticism vs. Affirmation. Schopenhauer promotes asceticism. Pull back, reduce desire, find peace in simplicity. Nietzsche critiques that withdrawal, saying it risks nihilism or resentment. Instead, he prescribes transformation. Affirm your reality by making art of your life. His ascetics are artists, not self-deniers, but they agree you must make space. Schopenhauer makes space by subtraction. Nietzsche by bold construction. Both free the soul. Compassion vs. Overcoming. Schopenhauer's compassion dissolves the ego. Suffering becomes collective. Nietzsche's compassion is active and creative. It requires strength. It sees suffering as fuel, not fuel for dominance, but fuel for art, empathy, and transformation. You become a protector of light, not a victim of shadow. How do we integrate both in a modern wellness or philosophical practice? First, name the pain. Sit with it, journal it. Realize your will drives, worries, cravings. Call them out. This is Schopenhauer's darkness. You stare into it until it loses power. Second, create space for experience. Engage in a practice that feels like beauty without desire. Ambient meditation, silent sitting, nature immersion, music without agenda. Here you glimpse your consciousness beyond craving. Third, activate your Nietzschean self. You've cleared space. Now you build. Create a habit that affirms you. Paint with purpose. Move with intention. Speak truth. Let your will sculpt you, not enslave you. Fourth, drink from the shared well of compassion. Witness another's suffering, but respond with creativity. A kind word, a shared silence, a shared song. In that, you echo Schopenhauer. In that, you strengthen your becoming. Here are simple ways to apply the lessons. Digital fasting. Unplug regularly to witness the hunger for distraction. Let it surface. This is waking up to will. Cold immersion or yoga challenge. Learn to say yes to discomfort and transform that discomfort into vitality. Creativity with constraints. Write a poem in 5 lines. Paint with 2 colors. Make simplicity your canvas. Evening inquiry. Ask, what did I resist today? Name it, accept it, transform it tomorrow. Compassion check-ins. Ask yourself daily, where did I help someone feel seen? Let empathy strengthen your soul. We're living in a time of hyperstimulation, chronic stress, and misinformation. We chase happiness as if it's an app download or a viral recipe. But this makes life hollow. Schopenhauer and Nietzsche show us something deeper. Suffering isn't a glitch, it's the OS. Once you stop fighting it, you repurpose it. Seeing suffering gives you boundaries. Turning it into meaning gives you strength. Cultivating compassion gives you connection. Instead of being tossed on waves of distraction or avoiding pain, you become the sailor, navigating with depth, focus, and integrity. There's a strange paradox hidden at the heart of both pessimistic philosophies. The deeper you go into life's darkness, the more luminous certain moments become. It isn't light that reveals life's meaning, it's the contrast against shadow. Schopenhauer and Nietzsche both understood that clarity, wisdom, and even peace are not born in comfort, but in wrestling with discomfort, boredom, and suffering. In this part, we explore how both thinkers treated solitude, art, and the experience of the sublime as essential tools for living a life beyond illusions. For Schopenhauer, solitude wasn't an option. It was a requirement for anyone seeking to escape the tyranny of the will. Being alone removed the endless feedback loop of social craving and superficial validation. In solitude, you encounter your raw self, your hunger, your existential anxiety. And in that quiet torment, you begin to see life as it truly is. He believed that only in such isolation could one detach from the illusions society manufactures, wealth, fame, distraction, and perceive the eternal condition of suffering. Nietzsche, too, valued solitude, though his was a creative, dangerous kind. He warned against the herd mentality of modern culture and believed that only through solitude could one confront one's thoughts without compromise. But for Nietzsche, solitude was not merely escape, it was a forge. It was where the self melted down illusions and reassembled its identity. It was where one faced the abyss and either succumbed or transformed. In modern life, solitude is rare and often feared. Yet both philosophers insist it's vital. It's the space between illusions where something real might be born. Schopenhauer's reverence for art wasn't aesthetic fluff. It was metaphysical medicine. He believed that art, especially music, temporarily quieted the will. In those moments of artistic absorption, whether in front of a painting, a sonata, or a sunset, we forget ourselves. Our desires fall silent. Time dissolves. The suffering self disappears, and we're left with pure perception. This is the sublime. An encounter with something vast and indifferent, something beyond explanation, that silences the ego and reveals the smallness of our dramas. Schopenhauer saw this as one of life's highest possible experiences, not because it lasts, but because it points beyond the cycle of craving. Nietzsche agreed, though his view was more creative. He saw art not just as an escape, but as a rebellion. It was how one transformed suffering into beauty, pain into power. He argued that great art was forged in life's heaviest moments. Tragedy was not meant to depress. It was meant to elevate, to teach us to dance atop the ruins of meaning. In your own life, these ideas suggest something radical. That your greatest clarity may come not in moments of pleasure, but in moments of beauty that carry weight, that ask something of you, that overwhelm you. When art, a film, a piece of music, a poem moves you to tears, it isn't just entertainment, it's philosophy in motion. Both philosophers agreed that tragedy isn't an aberration, it's life's default. Schopenhauer saw the world as a fundamentally tragic place where happiness is rare and fleeting. Nietzsche saw tragedy as a necessary experience for those seeking to grow beyond mediocrity. Nietzsche admired Greek tragedy for its unflinching confrontation with human frailty, fate, and suffering. He believed the ancient Greeks understood something modern culture forgets, that facing the worst makes us stronger. Tragedy was not designed to make audiences feel good. It was designed to awaken them. It was spiritual medicine. He wrote that the Greeks invented tragedy to cope with life's cruelty, to dignify suffering, and to teach us that beauty and horror are forever intertwined. Life is not either joy or despair, but both at once. This, too, has practical meaning. If you can begin to see your setbacks, losses, and betrayals not merely as accidents, but as opportunities to awaken a deeper clarity within you, they cease to be meaningless. The pessimist sees the darkness. The wise pessimist finds their sight in it. Both Schopenhauer and Nietzsche placed immense value on inner courage, not the physical bravery of war or sport, but the quiet, uncelebrated courage of facing yourself. For Schopenhauer, courage meant accepting that life is suffering and resisting the urge to numb yourself with illusions. It meant refusing false hope. He argued that only by staring unflinchingly at life's hardships can you begin to act wisely and compassionately. For Nietzsche, courage was even more active. It was the will to power, not over others, but over your nature, over despair. Nietzsche's Übermensch was not a tyrant, but a self-mastered spirit who created value in a meaningless world. This courage is harder today than ever. In a culture obsessed with dopamine hits and shallow positivity, it's an act of rebellion to sit in silence, to name your despair, to stand naked before your soul without distraction. But it's in those moments that true clarity arises. What both Schopenhauer and Nietzsche grasped, and what many of us ignore, is that pessimism isn't about negativity. It's about honesty. It's a refusal to decorate life's ugliness with false light. And in that honesty, paradoxically, we find a truer form of hope. Not the hope that things will be easy, but the hope that we can endure them, transform them, even celebrate them. Their lessons remain vital. In a world hooked on illusions of instant gratification, they teach restraint. In an era of endless distraction, they teach stillness. In a time terrified of death, they teach how to face it with dignity. What if your greatest growth doesn't lie in achieving more, but in wanting less? What if true freedom isn't getting what you crave, but seeing through craving itself? What if your meaning is forged in how you face the tragedies you cannot avoid? You won't find these answers in the noise of the crowd. They wait in silence, in solitude, in tragedy, in art, and in the philosophy of pessimism. There's a peculiar kind of freedom that comes from surrendering the illusion that life is meant to make you happy. This doesn't mean giving up. It means waking up. Both Schopenhauer and Nietzsche believed that in fully confronting the nature of existence, its suffering, its absurdity, its relentless impermanence, you no longer live as a prisoner of hope or despair. You live as someone conscious. And that's the final, most essential lesson of pessimism. That peace is not the absence of pain, but the acceptance of it. That meaning is not handed to you, but sculpted out of tragedy. That wisdom is not born from comfort, but from courage. Schopenhauer insisted that suffering isn't incidental. It's the primary experience of life. Every craving unmet becomes pain. Every craving fulfilled becomes boredom. The only peace he believed possible came through seeing this cycle for what it is and stepping outside it. Not by escaping the world, but by transcending the false self driven by constant wanting. Through compassion for others, through immersion in art and voluntary simplicity, you loosen the grip of the will. You stop being merely a creature of desire and become something more, an observer, a witness to the world's strange beauty and sadness. Nietzsche took it one step further. He argued that suffering isn't a flaw to be eliminated, it's a raw material to be embraced. It's what forges depth, resilience, and creative power. To reject suffering is to reject life itself. But to accept it, to say yes to it, transforms you, not into a victim, but into a creator. His Übermensch doesn't avoid tragedy. He dances with it. Nietzsche's philosophy culminates in a defiant affirmation. Amor Fati. Love your fate, not tolerate it, not endure it, love it, even its betrayals, its losses, its humiliations, because it is yours. Because it's only in the acceptance of your fate that you stop being its captive. Imagine looking back on every disappointment, every grief, every mistake, and saying, "Good, I would not be who I am without this." This is not naive positivity. It's the highest form of realism. It's refusing to let the worst parts of life make you smaller, and choosing instead to let them carve wisdom into you. Schopenhauer saw glimpses of this transcendence in beauty and compassion. Nietzsche demanded we turn it into a way of life. Once you see the world this way, not as a playground of pleasures, but as a theater of impermanence and suffering where meaning is a personal creation, you can no longer unsee it. And with that clarity comes responsibility. Responsibility to stop numbing yourself with trivial distractions. Responsibility to stop expecting others to give you purpose. Responsibility to stop waiting for happiness to arrive and start cultivating something deeper. Dignity, depth, resilience. Both philosophers warn that, without this reckoning, you remain a servant to craving and circumstance. You chase pleasures that don't last and avoid pains that never fully leave. You become what Schopenhauer called a will-less phantom, or what Nietzsche called a last man, shallow, distracted, unchallenged. But by choosing to face reality, to affirm your fate, to create meaning where none is given, you become fully alive. So, how can you live this philosophy in daily life? Not abstractly, but tangibly. Practice radical honesty. Stop pretending every day needs to be positive. Name your losses. Acknowledge your cravings. See the wheel. Seek out art that unsettles you. Watch tragic films. Read existential literature. Let music break your heart. Beauty reveals depth. Embrace discomfort intentionally. Wake early. Fast occasionally. Sit with difficult emotions. Turn toward what you usually avoid. Choose compassion. Not as virtue signaling, but as recognition. We are all suffering. Every act of kindness breaks the cycle of blind will, create something. A poem, a meal, a letter. Nietzsche insisted on becoming a creator of values. It keeps despair from becoming nihilism. Say yes to your fate, especially the parts you'd prefer to erase. Make them sacred. Make them part of your strength. The philosophy of pessimism isn't about sadness. It's about seeing clearly and then choosing how to live with what you see. It's about finding clarity where others seek comfort. It's about courage, not bitterness. It's about walking through the darkness and discovering that it's where your most essential self waits for you. Perhaps the true measure of a life isn't how much happiness you've collected, but how honestly you've faced what can't be controlled. Schopenhauer taught us to find peace by stepping outside the wheel of craving. Nietzsche taught us to forge meaning by embracing the inevitable. Both believed that to be human is to suffer, but to be wise is to transform that suffering into insight, art, and ultimately freedom. If you've made it this far, you're already walking that path. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you agree with Schopenhauer's retreat from the will, or Nietzsche's defiant embrace of fate, which speaks more to your experience of life? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read your take.